Text: This film is dedicated to those with endearing relationships to Glacier Bay, including the ancestors of the Huna Łingít and Greg Streveler. A film presentation by Alaska Geographic, National Park Service. Quote, nature is ever at work building and pulling down, creating and destroying, chasing everything in endless song out of one beautiful form into another. John Muir.
Long ago, there was a broad, rich valley carved out of bedrock by the advance and retreat of massive glaciers over eons of time. This was the ancestral home of our people, the Huna Łingít. We called this place Shuyi, land at the end of the glacial silt. For generations, our clans thrived on the rich abundance of the sea and the land. The streams ran wild with plentiful salmon.
The camera moves along a stream from above. Below the water, a school of salmon swim in murky shallows.
The dense forests were full of life until the ice came again. Our way of life, Hakustiyi, is directed by traditions that have guided us since time immemorial.
The camera approaches the tribal house of the Łingít from a distance. At the front of the house, a recreation of the door painted with totem-style symbols swings open. As the camera moves into the house, a fire burns in the center, surrounded by several empty benches. A mural is painted on the farthest wall. Archival images of the Łingít fade in and out over the house.
Our ancestors bear witness to our stories told in this tribal house. The story of Castine is the history of our people and Glacier Bay.
Etched on a wooden wall is a depiction of the Łingít woman Castine. The light of the glacier shines in her eyes via inlaid pieces of a metallic medium.
Spit Plain, the big glacier, lay up at the head of our valley home, way beyond our village. Until one day, a young Łingít woman, Castine, broke a taboo and called to the glacier. It responded by surging forward, crushing everything in its path.
The towering glacier rushes forward, crushing the trees below and sending up a white haze around the village.
Our ancestors knew no time could be wasted. Everyone had to leave or perish.
Wooden buildings shatter under the ice as the advancing glacier crushes the empty village.
Our people packed canoes with all they could and fled to the south, escaping the ice.
The paddles of a canoe row in the bay. As the two red and black vessels glide away, the glacier pursues them. A wall of ice spans the bay and advances with speed.
Somebody had to stay behind to appease the glacier and stop its advance. The woman, Castine, chose to stay and was buried with the village.
Icy water flows in torrents from the eyes of Castine's portrait.
The glacier kept advancing until it reached a large bay of water where it finally stopped.
The recreated glacier stills and an image from Glacier Bay replaces it. On the water, two boats with small red sails float on the gently rippling surface.
Our people escaped across the bay to the place we now live, called Huna, which means in the lee of the north wind. It would be a long, long time before the ice released its frozen grip on our homeland.
An image of a rigid icescape formed by the blustering winds fades away. White text on a black background. Forces of Change, the story of Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve.
The ice covering the once verdant valley locked it in a deep freeze that lasted over 100 years. Winters were colder and longer. Life was hard for those left behind.
A moose struggles to walk through knee-deep snow.
When the English explorer, Captain George Vancouver, sailed into what he named Icy Strait in 1794, he commented,
"This small bay is choked by a sheet of ice as far as my eye can see."
Archival images of George Vancouver's portrait, his ship on the water, and the previous position of the ice.
He had no idea this tremendous sheet of ice had overrun the Łingít village, nor did he know it would soon begin a rapid retreat.
ice calving into Glacier Bay.
Yet it did begin to retreat, the face of the glacier moving back at an estimated rate of 20 to 30 feet a day.
A recreation depicts the face of the glacier retreating, leaving behind chunks of ice floating in the water of the bay.
Ocean water flowed into the void that was left by the ice, restoring a remembered landscape. The Tlingit named this emerging bay Sit Iti Gi'i, meaning bay in place of the glacier.
Recent footage of the rocky shore that has replaced the glacier.
By the time pioneering naturalist John Muir arrived in the area in 1879, the glacier had retreated 48 miles, revealing new waterways and barren rock. Muir came to this bay to understand how glaciers shaped the land. He could not have come to a better place.
The camera pans over snow-capped mountains.
During his 4 visits over 2 decades, Muir witnessed much change.
A grayscale sketch depicts a canoe with several disembarked explorers on the bank. Around them, massive chunks of ice litter the ground.
I have noticed with the changes in Glacier Bay, out of all the cold darkness and glacial crushing and grinding, comes this warm, abounding beauty and life to teach us that what we, in our faithless ignorance and fear, call destruction, is creation, finer and finer.
Baby birds turn to their mother with beaks open. 2 seals lounge on an ice floe.
Many scientists followed in Muir's footsteps, drawn to Glacier Bay by the compressed timeline of creation, carved out of bare rock by forces that boggle the mind.
The camera pans across a valley in the mountains.
The substantial and rapid changes that have occurred over the past 250 years make Glacier Bay an extraordinary place for scientific study. A unique living laboratory.
A research boat lowers a device into the water of Glacier Bay. The thick ice of the glacier appears blue in the light.
Given the passing of time and the ice in bold retreat, mosses, lichens, and small flowering plants begin to break down the rock, making way for shrubs and eventually trees. Plants force their way into this newly revealed landscape, followed by insects, birds, and mammals, from porcupines to moose and apex predators like brown bears and wolves. This process is known as biological succession.
A wolf races across a stretch of land, an archival portrait of William Cooper.
Visionary plant ecologist William Cooper was attracted to Glacier Bay through his study of plants. He recognized Glacier Bay as a valuable scientific resource and helped in the process to make the area a national park.
In 1916, I made my first visit to Glacier Bay, finding there a region rich in opportunities for research bearing upon the fundamental problems of plant succession.
The camera is partially submerged in clear water. Green foliage lines the shore, and below the surface, root systems flourish. Text, Lewis Sharman, ecologist, NPS retired.
In some ways, you can sort of travel back in time and look at what the landscape appeared to be at various times since the glaciers exposed the land. That process of recovery and recolonization is succession. In the face of disturbance, succession will happen. Life will return on its own terms. And, the Earth is going to be fine.
Today, scientists still hike, boat, and paddle through Glacier Bay, tracking answers to questions that can unlock the many mysteries of the bay.
2 researchers hike a narrow path. A man in an orange life vest drives a boat. 3 kayaks paddle along the open water of the bay. A wolf turns its head, displaying golden eyes. Text, Tania Lewis, wildlife biologist, NPS.
It's a really interesting story where, wolves colonized Glacier Bay after the ice retreated, and now they are adapting to this intertidal environment where it seems like most of their food is coming from the ocean, not the land.
A wolf trots through the shallows holding a sea otter in its jaws.
Instead of hunters, they're more like gatherers. just cruising the intertidal zone and pouncing on fish in the tide pools and eating shellfish, and once in a while scoring a sea otter. It's just really cool to see this place change and the animals change with it.
Animals in Glacier Bay have to be adaptable to survive in a landscape that is changing so fast. There is no better example than the glacial environments.
A man in a red winter coat trudges up a slope as he follows two figures across snowy peaks. A man in a brown jacket adjusts the transmitter on a weather station. Text, Andy Bliss, PhD, physical scientist, NPS.
I study the weather and climate, and also then the glaciers themselves and the interactions between the climate and glaciers, for example. Another reason scientifically why we're interested in weather is because over longer timescales, we can understand how the system is shifting with global climate change.
Andy adjusts a solar panel on a tripod set up on the shore. His backpack and additional equipment sit on the rocky beach beside him.
In the present climate, the glaciers are out of balance. So most glaciers around the world are losing ice relative to what they would have had 50 years ago, for example. And as a result, they get smaller. So they're losing volume, but they're also losing area. And here in Glacier Bay, that pattern holds true as well. So most of the glaciers, the vast majority of glaciers in Glacier Bay are retreating.
The face of a glacier crumbles and calves into the bay, sending up a spray of ice and water.
Here, major changes can occur hourly. These changes can have effects on the local wildlife.
Seals resting on an ice floe move with clunky hops toward the edge before sliding into the water.
Harbor seals depend on icebergs for a place to birth their young away from predators like killer whales. But that is not the whole story.
An orca's pointed dorsal fin cuts through the surface of the water. Ice crashes into the bay.
We used to have many tidewater glaciers in Glacier Bay. Now we only have 5 that are calving ice into the ocean.
A woman stands on the deck of a boat taking a photograph. Text, Jamie Womble, PhD, wildlife biologist, NPS.
Seals in Glacier Bay use the ice that's calved from tidewater glaciers for pupping and for resting. I've been studying harbor seals in Glacier Bay since 1996. Since that time, harbor seal populations in Glacier Bay have declined dramatically, from over 5,000 seals in the early to mid-1990s to just over 2,000 seals in 2017.
The dwindling population of seals is tied directly to the loss of sea ice they use for birthing. With the glaciers in rapid retreat, due to the warming climate, the harbor seal populations become a climate change indicator.
The camera zooms out from the glacier rapidly. Narrow streams of braided rivers carve through the silt.
Glacier Bay is no stranger to change. Change does not hesitate here as it does in many environments. Rather, it charges ahead with impatience.
In time-lapse footage, clouds roll across the sky. A block of ice melts into a puddle.
Climate change will be no different. Scientists can see its effects in real time, making Glacier Bay a bellwether for changes affecting our whole planet.
Opaque blue-tinted glaciers melt rapidly.
Just as air temperatures are increasing, so are temperatures in the ocean, causing marine heat waves. The warmer water can impact small schooling fish, causing their numbers to decline. These fish are the primary food source for the humpback whales that come to the bay every year from Hawaii to feed.
A school of shimmering fish swim together. A feeding humpback whale breaches the surface and snaps its jaws shut, sending out waves topped with white foam. The whale resubmerges with a pump of its powerful tail.
When there is not enough food, the whales and their calves may starve.
A woman wearing an orange waterproof coat stands on the deck of a one-person inflatable research boat. Text, Christine Gabrielle, wildlife biologist, NPS.
When I started my work here, the whales were actually at a pretty low point in their population, and over most of my career, the whales have been increasing. However, that came to a pretty abrupt stop in 2014 when there was a large marine heat wave occurring in the northeast Pacific.
An aerial view of 2 adult whales and a calf just beneath the surface of the water. The whales expel air and misty water from their blowholes.
A couple of things that struck me about the marine heat wave. One was how sudden the effects were. We had this population of whales that was doing really great, and all of a sudden it was like they hit a brick wall. The reproductive rate is very low and very sobering to watch.
Whales and many other animals and plants are being affected by the rising temperatures on our planet. The rising carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere, causing the warming climate, coupled with the increasing freshwater runoff from melting glaciers, could change the bay as we know it.
A waterfall tumbles over rocks. Mist rises as the water crashes to the ground.
This super cold fresh water flowing into the bay is capable of dissolving higher concentrations of carbon dioxide from the air, making the water more acidic.
Facing the glacier, the camera submerges halfway into the water of the bay. Waves lap at the lens as the wall of ice looms in the distance.
Many creatures that form the base of the food web need calcium carbonate from the ocean to create structural skeletons and protective shells. The acidic seawater makes building and maintaining shells difficult, thus reducing these creatures' ability to survive. Loss of creatures in the food web will have far-reaching effects.
A crab stands on thin legs. Gulls wheel above the water, flocking beside a steep cliff face.
Environmental changes have been a way of life in Glacier Bay for hundreds of years, but the changes we see today could well be symptomatic of global changes. Glacier Bay's richness does not exist in isolation.
A squirrel nibbles a pine cone. 2 puffins float on the water on a rainy day.
Its wildness is connected to the rest of the world.
A black oystercatcher with a long red beak waddles over rocks. The camera pans over a small stretch of shore.
The wildlands of this park extend from the coastal beaches to the tops of the mountains. They join the boundaries of 2 Canadian parks, Tashinchini-Alsac Park and the Kluane National Park and Reserve. Together with the adjacent Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve, they provide one of the largest, uninterrupted expanses of wilderness in the world.
When I'm out there in the wilderness, it makes me feel a deep connection to this place and a deep desire to maintain wildness in the world.
Text: Hillary Landers, Brady Icefield Expedition. 4 figures on cross-country skis travel across a snow-covered valley. A mountain rises in front of them. The skier at the rear glides down a slope with their poles raised.
Travel into these areas is challenging. There are no roads, no trails, no runways, no easy access.
The skiers propel themselves across a flat expanse of snow on their skis. They tow a sled laden with materials behind them.
Everything needed for survival has to be carried with you. Here, there is a solitude that challenges the minds and the bodies of the few who dare to take it on.
Text: Ken Grant, Tlingit elder and ancestor.
When a tourist comes in to Glacier Bay, they marvel at the size of the whales, and they marvel at the snow-capped mountains.
A single canoe moves through the bay, standing out against the sheet of ice spanning the top of the channel.
I always say, when a person comes in, they're coming into wilderness. When we go in there, it's all our spiritual family. It's like going into a community. We see all these different spirits there.
The experience of being in a remote, wild place can bring sharp focus to the present moment.
A brown bear digs in the snow. 2 bald eagles sit on a mountain peak.
It can be spiritual and life-altering.
2 tents are pitched on the grass. Behind them, the sun sinks between 2 mountains.
The survival of this wilderness depends on us treating our planet with respect. These days, it is rare to get beyond the reach of human-made sounds. In this massive wilderness, we can hear the voices of our ancient planet.
Two rafts travel along the current of the bay. The camera pans across a mountainous horizon made of peaks and valleys. An eagle descends, its talons reaching for the surface of the water. The eagle flies away, gripping a fish. In a tree, a songbird turns its head. On a narrow ledge, a white mountain goat with a bushy coat stands over cascading water. Another goat picks its way up the steep rock face. A flock of loons take off from the water's surface. A raft carrying 3 researchers and their equipment crashes through the agitated water.
Expeditions into these remote areas requires knowledge, skills, and careful planning. The rewards for the effort can be meaningful beyond measure.
A man grasps the oars and paddles the raft. Text, Steve Daly, river guide, father and grandfather.
We've created so many buffers between ourselves and the natural world that I don't think a lot of people even recognize what the natural world is anymore. And spending a little time in the wilderness helps people to rediscover that. And I think it's important for people to discover and appreciate that, because that's the beginning of preservation right there. When somebody truly appreciates it, they want to keep it, they want to save it and maintain it.
4 campers, 3 men and 1 young woman sit around a fire pit. One man gestures as he speaks, and the others nod. A woman fishes off a rocky shore while a young boy looks up at the sky through binoculars.
With the roughly 1,200 miles of shoreline in the bay and along the outer coast, one could spend a lifetime exploring the inlets and islands and shoreline in this awe-inspiring place.
The camera circles a miniature island near the shore.
The outer coast of the park is a place where the major weather systems from the Gulf of Alaska clash with a rugged shoreline. The only way to visit these areas is by boat or bush plane. With very few safe harbors and even fewer beaches suitable for landing, access is very challenging.
A colony of sea lions cover the surface of a boulder.
One of the few exceptions is Lituya Bay. Even though it is a rare protected anchorage, it too can be unforgiving. This bay is the site of numerous past tsunamis due to its proximity to a major earthquake fault. In years past, Tlingit villages were destroyed by tsunamis. And then, in 1958, a local 7.8 earthquake caused 90 million tons of rock to landslide into the bay.
Archival images reveal the various positions of the bay throughout time.
It created one of the largest tsunamis ever recorded, washing up the mountainside to 1,700 feet. It stripped the shoreline of all its vegetation.
An aerial black and white photo of the bare shoreline.
These events are painful reminders of the geological instability of the area as the forces of change reshape these landscapes daily.
Clouds move and the tide drifts in time-lapse footage. On a clear day, 4 researchers stand at the top of a boulder.
Wilderness can be experienced in many ways. Whether you hike, kayak, or observe the land slipping by from the deck of a ship.
A woman stands alone in the Glacier Bay wilderness. 2 kayaks, 1 red and 1 yellow, paddle through the water. A cruise ship moves through the center of the channel, leaving a large wake behind it.
Time spent with a wild landscape can have a lasting effect.
Text, Mike Mason, cruise ship passenger.
I worked in big cities, and the idea that there still is this here on the planet, makes you feel pretty good.
A boat bears the National Geographic logo on its hull. Tourists stand on the deck looking out.
Summer is the season when people come to see Glacier Bay. For about 6 months of the year, it is an easy place to be. But come fall, things begin to change. As the storms begin to roll in from the Arctic, salmon are finishing their spawn to produce the next generation.
A stretch of water is packed with adult salmon.
Bears are busy packing on the pounds to make it through winter.
A bear turns over a rock. Another stands in shallow water holding a fish in its jaws. On the shore, it tears the fish apart and gnaws on the meat. A flock of geese fly together.
The geese have headed south. The puffins head out to sea, and everyone else starts preparing for winter.
A group of sanderlings forage at the shore.
Days get shorter. In time, snow begins to fall.
A songbird puffs up its feathers as snow falls on the evergreen trees around it. A squirrel hides beneath a branch coated with a thick layer of snow.
A deep chill settles over the land and waters. As the twilight of winter settles over the land and the sea, we know that in spring, change will come again to Glacier Bay, as it always does.
In time-lapse footage, the northern lights dance in the sky. Bees land on vibrant purple wildflowers growing in clusters.
Since time immemorial, the Tlingit have seen this place go through many changes. Each time they have adjusted and survived.
A group of Tlingit tribal members row a traditional canoe together.
From their resilience, we can find wisdom and inspiration about survival in a changing world.
Images of Tlingit designs and architecture overlap one another. An aerial shot of the bay reveals the dark shape of a whale in the water below.
What we know is this. Glacier Bay's story, a story of change and adaptation, will continue. Whirling and flowing, natural and unfettered as it always has.
Mist rises to the peaks of the mountains. A waterfall pours over a rocky outcropping.
Forces seen and unseen will continue their rhythmic motion, chasing everything in endless song, out of one beautiful form into another.
Mist obscures the ice flows in the bay. The camera zooms in before fading to an image of sharp mountain peaks standing on the horizon. Text produced by National Park Service, Alaska Geographic, made with support from Fujifilm. The text fades away and credits roll.